Welcome to the Arrowheads Podcast, your official podcast of the PLL sanctioned supporter group, the Arrowheads, your one-stop shop for Utah Archers lacrosse. Welcome to another episode of the Arrowhead Podcast, your official podcast for the official supporter group of the Utah Archers Lacrosse Club, who are the 2024 champions. Back-to-back champions. And here's my song for you guys. I told you I had a song. It's coming home. It's coming home. It's coming. Lacrosse is coming home. There you go.
Yes.
I like it. I love
Beautiful.
Beautiful. Lacrosse is coming home once again. Utah did it, boys. How was it? We're just over a week out. Like, what was that day like for you guys?
All right, I'll start out. It was the first time that I had family coming over to watch the game and that we were all cheering for the same team. And I know we had talked about this in the earlier episodes. I was actually a Dogs guy before. I always liked the Archers, but before there was, official teams and home cities, I was definitely a Dogs guy. So last year we had kind of a divided house because I was a Dogs guy and everyone else was an Archers fan. And now this year it was fun to be united in that. But to be honest, I was a little bit nervous going into this game. Whipsnakes were looking real hot. They were playing really well. And we know that attack line is fantastic. I know our defense had done really good. I didn't know how well we were going to match up. I know that we beat them, we had been 2-0 against them on the season. But the Whipsnakes, they know how to win. They're kind of I think of them like the Chiefs a little bit. Like they could be down, but they just find ways to win games. And so I was a little bit nervous going into it. And I didn't even know if we were going to win until I was sitting there pulling. Well, I don't have hair, so I can't pull my hair out. But I was sitting there stressed out.
You had hair going into the game.
I had hair, yeah. And now I don't. And I was sitting there stressed out, and I was like, oh, freak, they're going to hit a 2. They're going to hit 2 consecutive 2s. And it wasn't until we had 40 seconds left. And I was like, oh, we got this. We just went back to back. And that was super exciting, especially growing up in Utah and being starved of any kind of championship of any professional team, really, to have the Archers come in and win it and be the first home that home region or home state in our case to win it, and it to be Utah was crazy, and it was a wonderful feeling. So yeah. That's just my beginning.
It was huge. Toast, how was the day for you?
Just fantastic. The Archers are already the winningest team in Utah professional sports history.
Take that, Jazz
Brady was talking about that. Are you kidding me? Oh. Yeah, just that whole game. First of all, what a fun game to watch.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, tight for most of the game, especially going into halftime. It was this is anybody's game. Anybody could take this, and just some of the best plays in that game, just some awesome lacrosse. Completely dominated, and we did it without Captain America. We did it without our MVP. Yeah. It feels like everything came into place at the end of the season. And I kind of did a look back from beginning of the season to now. I remember at the beginning of the season, we were kind of what's going to happen with this team? It was not clear at the beginning of the year what this team was going to be. I mean, we barely beat the Water Dogs, and it was there was a lot of sloppy stuff out there. And we came together beautifully at the end of the year, and now we're talking about, is this going to be a dynasty?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's so much to unpack from that. I will say I still have a kid in my household who's a Whipsnakes fan. My goalie Hudson still won't move on from it. I have a picture of him wrapped up in his blanket, his head sticking out.
I saw that.
I'm like, buddy, maybe it's time to move. It's time to get on board the bandwagon here. So I'm still wearing his Whipsnakes jersey. Can't get him out of it. Kyle Bernlaw has him. Yeah, that's his idol. So anyway, all right. So Tosh, you talked about the beginning of the season. I think Brady, you and I were at the draft party, right? That we had on for the Arrowheads. The reaction in the room to Mason Woodward being drafted everybody was like, who?
Yeah. I was
Right?
even like, what the freak did we
Yeah.
just do? Why?
Yes. And then we had the caller that came in, like we got the text, right? What do we think about the draft class? I think everybody was a little wary of it. And I was looking up stats and I tried to find it on for the postseason, I think, stats for defense. Mason Woodward, 4 caused turnovers, 7 ground balls, 2 points. The Hossack had 2 caused turnovers, 4 ground balls, and 2 points. He had better stats than Hossack. Like in the postseason, he was immense, and especially in that championship game. Like I think at this point, like whoever Coach Bates drafts, everybody has to be like, this guy knows his stuff, right?
Coach Bates put on a master class. Put on a master class with this draft class.
And I loved it because everyone was so smug about it and like even us. Like I was one of the smug ones. And like in the broadcast, like, what the freak is he doing? And he was like out there, he's like, I don't care what any of you guys think. I know what I'm doing. And when he wanted the championship, like right after that. So I just think like it's awesome when people say like, hey, I'm gonna go out there and do this, and everyone doubts them and then they go and do it. You know, like you just like spoke it into existence. That was awesome.
100%. And then defensively, Bo Pedersen in the championship game, I think 1 caused turnover, 4 ground balls. Like 11 touches, 11 passes made, like just another Utah kid, just stepping up. Like it was amazing to see these rookies come into their own this year. So
Yeah, Dyson Williams also scored a
yeah,
goal. I
yeah,
think he had a goal and assist or something. He might have had more than that, but I know he had a goal for sure.
yeah,
And it was an awesome one too, coming in, was it right at the end of the third at buzzer beater crease finish. So he
yeah.
definitely knows what he's doing when he's coming to drafting. Um, I was talking about, TJ, and it would have been nice to have TJ too sometimes. That guy, he's a phenomenal player. But in the end, like we didn't need TJ. You know what I'm saying? Like we won a championship without him. So
Yeah.
it's a good
And
feeling.
let me ask you guys this too, as we're talking about players. The guy that's been on our podcast, we emailed him championship MVP 2 years in a row, Brett Dobson. I think he was a 71% save percentage in that game. Yet right
Ridiculous.
before that, Blaze Reardon was given goalie of the year.
That drove me
What's your
nuts.
take? What's your take on that? Like, is that just the people talked about it being like the Blaze craze, like or the Blaze haze, right? They just if Blaze is playing, you give him the MVP. Or was it based on regular season? Maybe Dobson's more inconsistent. Tell us, you and I talked about this a little bit. Give me your take on that.
Um, I'm a little conflicted on it. Um, Dobson may be my favorite player in the league ever.
Mm-hmm.
And just love everything about him. Love the way he plays, his personality. Just love Dauber. It's tough though, because like again, when you're looking at if you're looking at the end of the regular season, I probably would have predicted that Blaze Reardon wins the award. I get that Blaze was out for a few games, but Blaze is Blaze. And there were a couple games at the end of the regular season that really cemented why Blaze was Blaze. And so it's tough. And Dobson, to be fair, he had a couple weeks where he was a little bit off. It was basically like he would have monster weeks, and then he'd have a couple weeks where he was just, average or like above average, which, it's as a Utah fan, we say, oh, Dobson has an above average game. Like, what a disappointment, but in reality, it's still a good game.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. I think why people are mad is because of how Dobson played in the playoffs. Like, he just played absolutely lights out. He was the MVP of both games. And
Yeah.
so it's pretty clear now who the best goalie is. But I think, again, if you're looking back at the regular season, I probably would have given it to Blaze too. It's hard to say no to that.
Do you want to know what his combined save percentage was on the 2 games? 80.9%. I mean, that's insane. Let me see. I think it was like 35 saves he had in the postseason. 38 saves, sorry. 38 saves. 4.5 shots against average. I mean,
well, it's not just the postseason, but that's in 2 games.
yeah, exactly.
Ridiculous.
That's crazy.
Like, I mean, that's it right there. Like, how do you, if you're the opposing team, you can do everything else well, but you can't beat the goalie. Like that's an immense game changer right there. So yeah, Dobber, props to you, hats off, very worthy championship MVP. Um, talk to me a little bit, guys, about the offense. Like thoughts on offensively how we performed.
To be honest, that was something I found very interesting too, because at the beginning of the season and a couple of those, like early Denver, we struggled offensively.
Hmm.
And just to see the change over the course, and even in the semifinal, I thought our offense was okay. Like we had a really good half, and then we kind of struggled especially like that third or fourth quarter against the Chaos. And so I was kind of nervous, but I think our offense lit it up in the championship game. And to do that without Tom, like that's been something we've talked about on this podcast as well. Like, what's the future like? Like, we know that he's awesome and he wants to play as long as he can, and we want him to play as long as he can. But at some point, he's going to retire. And when you build an organization around one guy, you're kind of like a one trick pony as a team. And to see that adaptability and being able to go and win a championship, I also think we put ourselves in a pretty good position. Like we were going to play the Chaos in the semifinal. We only had to win one game without him
Hmm.
in order to be in the championship. And I think playing the Whip Snakes instead of the Atlas, to be honest, was also favorable.
Yeah.
We won a championship, and I think we deserve it. At the same time, though, you look at the cards in the regular season standings, and we weren't the best team throughout the whole season.
Hmm.
It's about who plays the best lacrosse in the last couple of games of the season, you know? So it's just kind of interesting to shake it out. I think the offense figured it out and got better throughout the season and meshed more.
Yep. What about you, Toast?
Yeah, well, that was kind of talked about on the Mitchell Pelkey show. If you guys um, listen to that, they talked about how Utah kind of was under the radar, even though we were the reigning champions. The talk all year was basically the entire Eastern Conference. I mean, that was the whole talk of the league. It was like Atlas are so good. They look so dominant. Jeff Teat is having the greatest year ever. And then you've got the Cannons that look like on paper unstoppable. You've got the Whip Snakes that started off super slow and now they're red hot. And then you have the Water Dogs who, again, were in the championship last year and they've got the same roster. So you have this Eastern Conference that's so exciting. And then you look over at the West and you kind of got some of the duds. You got like California that had like one of the worst drafts ever.
Yeah.
You've got like Denver who's still trying to find their identity, and then you've got the Chaos that have the worst offense in the league but like the best defense, and so it's like
Hmm.
super weird to watch them.
Yeah.
But yeah, we kind of slipped under the radar all year, and then it was like suddenly I think it really wasn't, I think, until after that Chaos game where it was like, whoa, this is the championship team.
Yeah. Brady, you me and Caleb talked about this early on, right? That it felt like the Archers were a team where everybody contributed. And, toast your point, right? Redwoods, you think Redwoods offense? Rob Pennell. You think Atlas offense? You're thinking, Jeff Teat. There's always one person that everybody kind of like clues in on. In that championship game, we had 8 guys with points. 7 of those scored. Like, if you're a defense, there isn't one person you have to key in on. And that's without Tom Schreiber, right? Because even with Tom Schreiber, we still don't play selfish lacrosse. We play good lacrosse. And so to a point where when there's guys on the field and we have possession of the ball, you don't know where that scoring opportunity is going to come because it could come from any of those guys on the field. So to have that
Yeah.
many people scoring points and facilitating and hustling like they do, I think that's what makes the Archers different. And like you said, totally fly under the radar because other than Tom Schreiber, there isn't that one guy that you're like, oh, they're having a record season or they're really good at this and they're a legend here. It's a whole bunch of guys who are really good and play well together. Like,
Yeah.
I think if those individual pieces were on their own, maybe they don't. And this is just hypothetically, like maybe they don't perform as well. But those together as a unit, all those individual pieces put together as they are, the way Bates has them set up, is just has to be scary to any defense. Because, like I said, you
Yeah.
can shut one guy down, great. The other 5 are going to still be able to score. So,
I feel like almost everybody besides Tom is like a quiet, sneaky good player. Does that make
mhm.
sense?
Yep.
Like I think obviously someone like Connor Fields and stuff, he kind of has his place kind of up there because he likes to drive a little bit more. But guys like Michael Keith just kind of like slip in when you're not paying attention. He's like, oh frick, that guy has a hammer. Leclerc, also a hammer.
Yep.
Ament, he filled a huge role, and I honestly felt like he probably should have won midfield of the year. And that's nothing
Mhm.
against Tom because he deserves that as well. But just the circumstances were different.
Yep.
And Eamon also was there to kind of help carry and facilitate in that homecoming, especially in that to seal the Western Conference game. I think that was a big argument for him as well. Although without Tom winning the MVP overall, like I kind of get why things were distributed with awards, but I felt like everyone just stepped up. That's what it felt like to me on the offensive end. There was no star. Everyone stepped up to the plate when they needed to, and everybody contributed when they needed to.
Yeah, for sure. One interesting thing for me was in the game, uh, we Sisselberger didn't dominate the face-off stripe. Like he was not. I mean, I think I'm trying to look at the stats here. I think he was 9 or 7 for 21. Um, Tosh, you and I've talked about this for years. Like those specialty positions can make all the difference. And when you're not getting possessions, how difficult that can be. But again, that just comes back to the defensive side of the ball. That even though we didn't get possessions every time or the majority of the time off the face-off, we were still holding them scoreless. Like that's huge.
Well, and in this league with this format, like if you're not winning the face-off and you can get the stop, you're actually at a way bigger you're at a way bigger advantage than the other
Yeah.
team. You get the reset shot clock, so you get that full 52 to get set up. Meanwhile, the other team's on the defensive, and that you got chances for fast breaks. So
Yeah.
again, it's like face off is still a little bit weird with the 32-second shot clock. It's
Mm-hmm.
still like I remember just a couple of years ago, it was like if you're winning face-offs, it's like you have a clear advantage over the other team. That's why Trevor Baptiste won MVP, is because he was clearly winning possessions and winning. I mean, he was giving the Atlas a huge advantage over how good he was. And this year, it's still not quite the same. Like it requires teams to be a lot more disciplined with that 32-second shot clock. And so we've kind of got it figured out on both ends. Like we're able to
Mm-hmm.
stop the 32-second pretty well, and we're able to work within it pretty well. So it's
Yeah.
kind of a 50-50 ball for us.
I
Yeah.
would say going off of that, just like looking at the stats, and I thought this one was interesting. Like if you look at the chaos in that semifinal game, they had more shots than we did, and we had more saves than we did. But like face off was about 50-50. And you look at it and like the score doesn't show that. And I think over like possession time in general and touches, like I think I remember it being a little bit more, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think the chaos did really well. And one thing that stood out is Brett Dobson, first of all, because he's
Yeah.
saving a lot of those possessions, making, even though they have time with the ball, it's making it useless when the goalie saves it at the
Mm-hmm.
end. And then second, our efficiency on shooting got better and better throughout the season. And
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting because I would see us split or even be losing some of those 50-50 battles with ground balls and possession times, but we were still beating opponents by 6 or 7 goals. And I thought that was interesting how that it's like kind of hidden in the stats. And I wonder if Toasty could probably break that down for us throughout the season and maybe find some of those differentiating factors. But that was
Yeah.
one thing I noticed.
For sure. Yeah, it was I am with you. It's interesting. I don't think anybody's figured out how to maximize winning the face-off, how to really make that a game-changing, you know, how to make that to your advantage. Because I
Yeah.
think to your point, Toast, like really think back at the Redwoods when they had Gorenlian went all the way to the championship because that guy could win every face-off and score goals. Now it's not quite as easy. So, um, let's flip the conversation a little bit. I mean, Coach Bates came out and said, "Hey, look, we went to Utah and we had some key games to play, and those games changed our mindset." You guys are both there. Talk to us about him saying that. Like, what does that mean to the Utah fan base to hear that?
I can start. I mean, it means everything. It means everything to me. I'm we talk about this a lot, but Utah getting a team was like a dream come true. It was like Christmas Day. And
Yeah.
and so not only getting a team getting the returning champions and then winning like as a Utah team. It's like we've never like had something like this before, you know? So it's almost like I'm still kind of in shock from last weekend. Just like, well, what even happened? Like we have a good team, you know? It's still kind of I'm still kind of in shock over all of it. It's just like I can't believe that we have a team that's this good and that we're playing at this level. It just it means everything. And that last, I mean, that Utah weekend was about as perfect as it could have been. Um, I think honestly the playoffs for us started with that Denver game. I mean, that game was so huge. Being able to go right to the semis. I mean, that game right there could have been what not only motivated our team but also got us all the way to the championship, which I think is so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, just going off what Toasty said, if you would have told me when I was a teenager that we would have had a professional team out here and that we'd be doing a podcast about it and they'd be playing out here in Utah, I wouldn't have believed you, man. Like my best friend went to Lizards games and he had to like save up and it was like their big family trip or whatever. That was the only time he saw professional lacrosse. And it was like, and that's crazy, you know? So it's just awesome. And yeah, Toasty hit it right on the head, just like right on the nail. Just it's a dream come true, to be honest, and to be able to be a fan and be connected. And I think us fans needed those Utah games just as much as the Archers needed the fans.
Mm-hmm.
Like it felt like, you know, they say all season, hey, this team is your team. This team is your team. And until you're there cheering in the stadium with all the other Utahns around you, like you're kind of like, oh yeah, the Archers, whatever. But it was like that molding experience where it was like us and the Archers, yeah, we're together. This is our fan base. This is our team. Let's go out there and do this.
Yeah.
So it was an awesome feeling.
Yeah, and I think for them to come here and experience the way the crowd showed up and to have the quality of games that we did and the crowd to get into it. I mean, Dobson talked about it, right? This was pre them coming here. It was like, hey, I hope we get the reception like you see at the Jazz games and you see that they, the hockey fans gave the Utah hockey team when they came here, right? He's like, that's the kind of reception we want. And I feel like we delivered. Like, even, the folks that we worked with the game day, like, yeah, we knew these guys were going to be into it. Like, we knew this place was going to be special. And it feels like from having the COVID bubble here, it's almost like that made the connection with Utah. And I think like the Archers were waiting to get here, and I think they were kind of like, we anticipate it being good, but we don't know how good it's going to be. And for them, it was like, and you get the sense of like, I don't feel like other teams maybe have connected with their fan base like the Archers did when they came to Utah. Like like they feel like they're a home team. They feel like their fan base had a packed stadium who got behind them. Like if that championship game had been played in Utah instead of Philly, or even Denver, like I would have freaking driven to Denver if that's what it took to go there, right? And watch that game, and that would have been a raucous crowd to play in front of. It's like with the 12th man, right? And essentially kind of that mentality, right? Of the Utah fan base gave them a lift. And I truly believe that they feel like they're a home team. They feel like that connection got made. It's this weird like thing, but like these two things came together to make this perfect storm, right? Of just like Tom Schreiber went down, the crowd lifted him up, and they just rode that wave for 2 more games. And they're like, okay, we have a fan base behind us. We've got something to play for and beyond just the team. And it's like those lacrosse players have wanted that. Like a lot of those guys that you talked about, the Lizards, some of these guys, when that's who they watched growing up, right? And they haven't had a home team to play for. And now they've got a home team like, oh, this is what it's like to have a home team. So props to the Utah fan base for showing out.
Let me just touch on that real quick too. One thing I got to say is just how awesome it was that the PLL assigned home teams this last year. I mean, I've loved the PLL basically since its inception, and every year it's kind of like, oh, I like this team, or oh, this team's cool, and so it just, but being and this is one of the great things about being a sports fan is you feel like you're a part of something bigger. And when we have a team that comes into a place like Utah, not a traditional hotbed, and you get fans that have been playing lacrosse for a long time that haven't had this opportunity before, you get guys like us that want to join a podcast just to talk about lacrosse because it's so fun.
Because our wives are sick of us.
Yes. And it's just I mean, it's almost magical, you know, where you can have a team, you can have a community of people come together cheering on something they love. And it just means so much more this year having Utah across the chest and being able to just be a part of something bigger. So just that, like that winning, it just felt so much bigger this year, so much better. And it was just so awesome to watch.
Yeah. Well, it didn't feel like you were cheering for this third party. It felt like we were winning a championship. Even though we weren't
Yeah.
on the field or anything like that, we're like, man, we just won a championship. I can't believe we did it. And that's what
Yeah.
me and my little brother were like screaming at the end, like, whoa! And my landlords were like, hey, quiet down.
Yeah.
But it was fun, you know, and it was a good time to sit there and be like, wow, this is our team now.
Yeah.
And we are part of the Archers, even though we're just the fans. And
Yeah.
during that homecoming weekend, I remember being in the stands, leading some of those cheers on my side of the stadium and feeling like, hey, we need to lift this team up, and feeling like it was kind of our responsibility to get the team going. And that was fun to contribute in that way as well. So, yeah, it's been awesome. In fact, we did so well. The PLL made a documentary about our homecoming weekend. And when they
Exactly.
talked about historic moments of the season and that, like, in that halftime, they talked about Utah's reception. And they didn't say that of any other one, of any other of the other home bases. And so that to me was just awesome to feel like they weren't blowing it up, man. If you were there, you would have known what that was like. It was awesome.
Yeah. And I think too, there's a part of this that Utah is not a hotbed of lacrosse, right? And so when you're a lacrosse player in Utah and you find another lacrosse player, even if they're not on your team, you want to make that connection. Be like, hey, guys, we're the same. We play lacrosse, right?
Yeah.
My son's in France right now on a Mormon mission, and another kid in the same mission played for a rival high school. They graduated the same year. He's like so excited that there's a kid he can connect with, like because they're both lacrosse players from Utah. Like they love it, and so to bring a team, like to give us a team, it felt like now all of a sudden all these individual players around had some common ground to now be like we all are Utah Archers fans. You know,
Yeah.
you're from Maryland or New York, you've grown up with this, and you go to school, and half the kids play lacrosse. Like kids here, like my son in middle school is like, I think there's one kid in my class who maybe plays lacrosse for another team. Like there's
Yeah.
one kid that you maybe know that plays lacrosse.
Yeah.
This is like a chance to be like, we're all during the season, like you, except for my son who wears his Whip Snakes jersey. The rest of them are wearing Archers gear, right? But it's that commonality of like something to get behind now that there is this unifying body for Utah
Yeah.
lacrosse players, lacrosse fans, lacrosse dads, lacrosse coaches, lacrosse moms and girls, and you name it, that can come together and be like, we're now one lacrosse family in Utah. I love that.
Well, just going off of that, like the day before the championship, I was fishing out in Heber and I went and stopped at Chubby's to eat. And I remember there was like this 10-year-old kid that had a Dobson jersey on. And I went up to him and I was like, hey, are you ready to watch the game tomorrow? And he's like, heck yeah, I am. And he was like so excited. And I realized, and I sat down and I got my food and I was like, what reality am I living in? Like,
Mhm.
this is the weirdest thing. Like, we have a professional team. They're going to the championship. And now I see, like, I was fishing just the last week and I saw like one of those box, like the, Wasatch Whalers or whatever they're called, right?
Yeah.
And to see that growth in Utah is just like, especially like for us who've started, like James, you started a youth program. I'm starting a youth program this next year. When I was playing, our whole school district was one lacrosse team. And kind of like, not necessarily like those pioneers of the sport, but those who have seen the growth of the sport, it means a ton to us
Yeah.
going to a game, all having Utah, because we've all fought for that. Like we've all made the sport grow. We've all put in that effort. And it's awesome to be like, hey, not just we won the championship, but that's like years and years of lacrosse development out here.
Yeah. And I'll just say thank you to the Archers, like, and to the PL for giving us the Archers, because if we had the Redwoods, let's be honest, it's hard to get behind a bad team, right? But it is like, would that crowd have been there for that game to show up for a team that was already basically out and hard to get behind? Like, we have the freaking champions, like two-time champions. We got the reigning MVP. Oh no, it's not the reigning, but like last year's MVP. We've got all these guys getting awards. We've got the championship MVP as the goalie twice. Like you've got these amazing players now, this amazing team that represents Utah. So these players not only have a team, they have the best team. And so it's not hard to get behind. So thank you, Archers, for winning, because the inspiration you give to these kids is like huge, to see, like, for my son who's a goalie, even though he loves the whip snakes, he's sitting there like going, holy crap. Like every time you watch Dobson, every time Dobson made a save, my son who's a whip snakes fan would be so frustrated. He's like, would he stop saving those goals? But I'm like, dude, that's like you. Like, you should be like that. Like, be the most annoying guy on the team because you're stopping everything. Like, the inspiration they give these kids is incredible. And it feels like we just have the right mix of players. There's not a player on that team that you can't get behind. You can't look at and be like, and no kid is looking at that guy going, I don't want to be like him. From Mason Woodward to Hossack to Dobson to Sisselberger, all the way down to Amon and Schreiber and, even Jack Vano, right, is inspiring kids that may be on the bench, right, that didn't get the call up to their varsity team to be like, hey, you just keep hanging out because you'll get your shot, right? It feels like across the board, we just have the team that Utah needed.
Well, and to be honest, like, I don't think we win a championship without Jack Vano. Like, what he did to get us in that semi-bye was super important.
Yeah, and I think honestly, one of my biggest takeaways from the end of this year is we're not done. This is just the beginning. And I really hope that this is the least number of Utah fans ever. I hope that this year's crowd was the worst crowd that Utah will ever have. I hope that this is just only the beginning of building something greater. All of us that have seen lacrosse grow in Utah, we all want to see it grow even more. We want, like, I've got these huge dreams and aspirations of what I would love to see for the Archers. Like, I want a stadium, I want to pack that thing every single game. And I think we there's still work to be done from all ends, as fans, as coaches, as Archers players, and as an Archers team. There's still more that we can do, and there's still more that we can be. I want to make history. I want that three-peat. I think to me it's just like we're just getting started. This is only the beginning. Utah fans are only going to get rowdier. We're only going to get louder, and we're only going to keep loving our team even more. So that, to me, that's my biggest takeaway.
I'm with you. I want to see next year Chief out there with his tailgate like 10 times the size. I want to see ticket scalpers out there because it's sold out and people are desperate to get tickets, right? And I will say to those Archers players that listen, I mean, Dobber was the championship MVP, and he came on the podcast. I'm not going to say there's a correlation there, but maybe there's a correlation there. Like, you want to set yourself up for MVP, you might want to come be a guest on our podcast. So just saying. All right, guys. I think we're all just super excited about this. Over the next few weeks, we're going to see if we can get some players, coaches on, chat with some folks, bring you kind of the inside scoop on things. But yeah, I don't know if we could have had a better season than we had. I mean, it had its ups and downs. It had excitement, close games, drama, injuries, like guys stepping up, like just it's a fairy tale, right? For a first home season, it kind of was a fairy tale, had everything. Couldn't have asked for anything better. All right, let's do this. Toast. 3 words to describe this season. Putting you on the spot.
Oh man, that's a tough one. Hold on, I gotta think. 3 words to describe this season.
Yeah.
Let's get another.
Another.
Let's get another. That's what I'm saying. Let's get another.
All right, Brady. 3 words to describe the season.
I'm gonna do 4.
Okay.
Above all else, win, baby. Let's go.
Above all else, win, and that is what we did. So I love it. So, all right, guys, we'll leave it with a wrap. With that, with all else wins. Appreciate you guys this season. It's been man, what a roller coaster. What a fun season. What a way to end it. So I couldn't ask any better. Feel free to text us, call us, message us, whatever platform you're listening on. All the contact information's in the bio. Appreciate everybody listening, stepping up the season. Appreciate all those in the Arrowhead supporter group. Been lots of changes this season. All the people behind the scenes in the PLL that made this happen. Truly monumental kind of effort through some of the home games to coordinating everything from the Discord channels and the socials and things that go on behind the scenes. Really, really monumental effort to really bring everybody together. And I guess my parting thing is if you want to get involved, man, reach out to us. We can connect you. Like there is so much that can be done here to Toast Point. This is just the beginning. Let's make Utah the location
The powerhouse,
for lacrosse,
man.
the powerhouse. I love it.
Powerhouse fan group. Let's do it.
All right, Brady, take us out one more time.
Above all else, win.
Above all else, win. All right,
Yeah,
thanks,
baby.
guys. We'll speak to you next time. This podcast is not affiliated with the Premier Lacrosse League or Archers Lacrosse Club. This is an independent, fan-run podcast.
Yeah.